and the air of Boston's North End already held the sharp, yeasty tang of industry. But on the raw, unseasonably warm afternoon of Wednesday, January 15th, the scent that usually signaled enterprise, the heavy, dark, and intoxicating aroma of fermenting molasses, became a suffocating premonition. At precisely 12:30 p.m., the very heart of the Curity Distilling Company's massive storage terminal, a colossal steel tank holding over 2 million gallons of thick, sticky, black molasses, buckled. It didn't crack. It didn't leak. It simply detonated. Imagine a cannon blast fired into a quiet city street. The sound was a concussive thump, so deep and immense that residents miles away described it as an elevated rail derailment or an explosion from the nearby harbor. But what followed was no fire or shrapnel. It was a wave. A 50-foot-tall, black, viscous tsunami of sugary goo erupted from the ruptured tank and hurtled through Commercial Street at an estimated 35 miles per hour. This wasn't water. It was a tide of treacle, 8 feet deep in places, a living, breathing, inescapable organism of doom. The immense hydrostatic pressure of 2.3 million gallons of dense liquid had transformed the molasses into a fluid battering ram. It struck the elevated rail tracks of the Boston Elevated Railway, ripping the steel support girder right out of the pavement, collapsing the structure. A nearby fire station, Engine Company 31, was swept off its foundation and pulverized. The homes, shops, and businesses of the densely packed Italian-American neighborhood were shattered like glass. People, horses, and wagons were instantly submerged, caught in a surge that moved with the crushing force of a glacier, yet the speed of a runaway train. In the first catastrophic moments, witnesses reported the sticky black liquid tearing through buildings, knocking down walls, and drowning everything in its path. It wasn't the force of the initial impact that was the most fatal. It was the persistence of the molasses. As the Boston winter air, even unseasonably warm, hit the warm 70-degree Fahrenheit liquid, the molasses cooled and rapidly thickened. Within minutes, the wave had settled into a dense, inescapable pool that was between ankle-deep and waist-high. People trapped in the surge, who hadn't been killed by the initial structural collapses, were now pinned. They were stuck, cemented into the hardening goo, unable to move their limbs, crushed by the debris the molasses held in suspension, and slowly suffocated by the viscous, sweet sludge filling their lungs. The disaster killed 21 people and injured 150 more, an astonishing death toll for a non-combustible substance. It was an event so absurd, so fundamentally improbable, that to this day it remains one of the most bizarre and tragic accidents in American history. But the true, deep story of the Great Molasses Flood is not just about the moment of impact. It is a meticulously detailed saga of corporate greed, forgotten warnings, revolutionary engineering failures, the birth of modern forensics, and a landmark legal battle that would redefine how American business was held accountable for disaster. This story begins not on that fatal street corner, but in the boardroom, where the architects of this catastrophe ignored the whispers of structural failure for the sake of a few extra barrels of profit. It begins with the tank itself, a marvel of early 20th century construction that was, in reality, a time bomb of poor planning and fatal negligence. Chapter 2: The Vessel of Ruin. To understand the horror of January 15, 1919, one must first understand the purpose and provenance of the colossal tank that birthed the flood. The year was 1915, and the Purity Distilling Company, a subsidiary of the United States Industrial Alcohol Empire, was riding a wave of wartime demand. Molasses, the sticky byproduct of refining sugarcane, was not just a sweet treat. It was the essential base material for industrial alcohol, a critical component in the manufacturing of munitions, explosives, and early automotive fuel. With America poised to enter World War II, and with the rumblings of nationwide prohibition making alcohol-related industries nervous about the future, Purity Distilling needed a massive storage solution, and they needed it fast. Their solution was tank number 52, a behemoth constructed on the Boston waterfront. It was an astonishing structure for its time, 50 feet high, 90 feet in diameter, holding a capacity of 2.5 million gallons. The project's timeline was aggressive, and the cost-cutting measures were ruthless. Arthur Gell, the USIA treasurer overseeing the construction, was not an engineer. His primary qualification was his ability to meet budgets and deadlines. Gell had hired a foreman with no experience in large-scale tank construction. The result was a rushed, flawed, and utterly lethal design. The tank was built of thin steel plates riveted to a